All right, in this section, we are going to cover how collections are handled by Hyku and how to create and then do a little bit of customization on a collection once it's been created. First, just to note that Hyku treats a collection, or sometimes it's referred to as a user collection, differently than what's called an admin or administrative set, even though those both get lumped together under the category of collection by the system. So you can see here this type column. These are all what I would call regular or standard collections, but there is an admin set. Administrative sets just define permissions around the works that are associated with that admin set. They're not visible to the end user in the way that standard collections are. So if you're going to create a new collection, you can only do that from the administrative dashboard in this collections section. For the most part, you can only do it through there. And then once you do it, it'll ask if you want to create a collection or an admin set. You can also create additional types of collections within the administrative dashboard. One limitation to creating additional collection types is any collection can be added as a sub-collection of another collection. So they sort of function loosely and interactively that way. If you create a different collection type, like say if I had collection and then file collection or something like that, a separate type of collection cannot be added as a sub-collection to a different type. They only want to play with their own type of collection. So that's a limitation to keep in mind. But by default, you only have the basic collection, and that really carries most of the water for the types of functions that we have for collections within Hyku, which is to group works together. So if you're going to create a collection, you have to give it a name, and optionally you can give it a description, though you're not initially required to. And you also have, through this button, you can load in additional fields that correspond to several Dublin Core fields, so you can add a bit more information about the collection if you would like to, but all you need is that title. So you can create a collection just as quickly as type a title, hit create, and then that collection will come into existence. And you'll notice that once you create it, then you can still go in and add those description or additional metadata fields, but you also have a few new tabs that weren't there before you created it. One of those is branding, where you can choose a banner that will appear at the top of the collection page when a user is looking at it. This logo is a little deceptive, but it creates a very small 40 by 40 pixel image that appears within the banner on the collection page. It does not appear on that collection as a thumbnail on the front page or in the list of collections that users see. It only appears as a tiny little icon within the banner on the page. We're rethinking how we want this to function in our actual instance. You also have, by default, when you create a collection, it will be created as private. So this is something to note when you're creating new collections, that by default, users who are not logged in will not be able to see that. And in fact, other users besides yourself will not be able to see them. So whenever I create a new collection, assuming I'm creating it to group works together because I want end users to be able to see them, the first thing I do is go and make it public, set up at least a banner on it, and then you have options to share that collection with either specific groups that you have set up within your repository or specific users. So if you did want to keep a private collection, but you wanted one other person who's sort of working on it with you before you make it public, you could add them through this sharing tab. But once you've made those changes, you can save there. Finally, after you've created the collection, you can't do this initially, and in fact, you can't do it immediately upon creation either, but you can set the thumbnail from any work that has been added to that collection, and it will appear as the thumbnail for that collection as it appears on the home page. So for example, you can see these are collections that I have created. Each of these thumbnails that show up on the front page are the thumbnail of a work that is in that collection. But if you click view all collections, instead of seeing that thumbnail, what you will see is what the system has set up as the default thumbnail for collections in your repository. And you can change that from the dashboard. I think I just opened an entire folder of bookmarks, so that's going to slow my system down for a moment. I apologize. I don't want to do that at the moment. From the dashboard, you can change that thumbnail, and that applies across all collections when you're in the view all collections or in any kind of search through settings, appearance, and you have these options, a banner image for the repository directory image. Under these default images, you can set your default collection image and also a default work image. You don't have to customize that. That's something that the system has a default already built into it. But if you want to customize that and bring it in line with your branding, you can do so there. So that covers the pretty basic process of creating collections. So if anyone has questions, we can answer that now. And if not, we can move on to the next section.